Hello, it's Stove Talk with Matt. Was watching this video about the construction of a Russian stove using this computer program, and it was a great example to show or express the purpose of the damper. See, that is a damper, and a lot of people don't understand what the use of a damper is in a masonry heater or a Russian stove or a large stove where the gases are wound around up and down. The reason for this is to allow the chimney to get hot all the way to the roof for the first 10 or 15 minutes the stove is in operation. If you try to light it up and everything's cold to the roof, this type of stove will smoke your house out. So this simple build of a Russian stove, it's probably pretty confusing to anybody that's new to this, but it's a relatively simple design, is the greatest example or a great way to see why these dampers are so important and how to incorporate them if you have any sort of a stove that needs to warm the chimney before lighting the stove. Even my own wood stove, because there's a horizontal run of over 2 feet, I need to warm the chimney a bit with a little fire starter, or it doesn't draft and I'll smoke my house out. All right, let me quickly take you through the construction of this Russian stove slash masonry heater, but getting to the part about the damper as soon as possible, because that's what we want to focus on here. So let me play this, and then I'm going to skip around a lot. I hope it doesn't get too annoying. This is a heating and a cooking stove. That iron plate there is over top the flames, and it's for boiling water, cooking, whatever you need to do. So let's get to the point where they start building the stove right from the first layer or the base level. There's the base level. On the left there, that's a clean out door. On the right, they're building the firebox where you would load the wood. The back is a clean out door as well. The gray bricks represent a refractory brick, or a fire brick. There's always an eighth of an inch or quarter-inch gap between fire brick and red brick because they have different rates of expansion, and the fire brick expands and will crack your red brick. Unlike most Russian stoves, there is no grate where the air comes from underneath. This is a hearth stove, which is very rare for the Russians. So building the firebox on the right using the refractory brick. And let me see if I can pause it at the right spot. No, well, here we go. The back, okay, the chambers there, or the, I don't know, the gaps around the firebox, eventually the air will flow, or the fire and flame and the hot gases will flow around the back of the stove and be wound around a bit before they find the chimney and go out of the house. That's how masonry heaters and Russian stoves work. But I'll show you that a little bit later. All right, skipping around, walking the mile. Walking the mile. Let me pause it at the right spot. Come on now. Okay, there it is. Okay, the firebox has been built. Most Russian stoves and masonry heaters, it's like a box within a box. Sometimes it's called a bell within a bell, but that doesn't really apply here. The firebox is contained, but then allows, you see it's open in the back here. The smoke is allowed to escape up the back and go into a second chamber that will be built when I hit play again. The second chamber in this case will be a bread oven or a cooking oven. And they're going to put another door in. So let me play that. Skip ahead. Okay, let me pause it. This is the next box on top of the firebox. This is the door down here where you load the wood. This is the second door you would open up into the baking oven or bread oven or whatever it may be. The gases will eventually be allowed to escape out the side here, and they will go down the side chamber and then up this chamber. I'll show you that. And then again, I don't mean to be too long-winded on this. The point was to get to the part about the damper and the essential need for a damper. When you light a stove up, if everything's cold, many types of stoves will smoke your house out until you get that chimney warm, especially these brick and masonry heaters. So let's skip ahead pretty quickly here. Okay, they've made a gap here, or a hole, so the hot gases flow into the bread oven. Then they'll go through this gap here, and they'll be drawn along the side chamber, down, and then up the back. Now I'm going to try to get to the damper part as quickly as I can. Let me go back so you can see what that is. Flames and gases come up here, fill this chamber. They've made a hole or a tunnel of sorts between the firebox and the red brick. Will be drawn down this chamber. The point is for all the hot gases to heat up all the bricks as evenly as possible. So this thing will then radiate heat out for 8 to 10 hours after the flames go out. This kind of wall here goes all the way to the bottom, except there's a gap of, say, 5 inches at the bottom, or there are 3 bricks or 2 bricks missing. So the smoke and flames are drawn underneath this wall and then up this lifting channel. The lifting channels are always smaller in Russian stoves, are usually smaller than the descending channels, and that actually creates speed and draft. So let me continue. Okay, there's the cooking plate, which is actually placed above the bread oven if you want to boil water, etc. And the damper will be coming up very, very soon here. Come on now. Walking the mile. Walking the mile. Come on now. There it is. Okay. The damper. All right. Now, the purpose of this damper is when if this thing, this stove gets, all the bricks are ice cold. It gets lit, say, in October. And without this damper open, the chimney, you always know where the chimney is going to be on a stove that will go up through the roof by where the first damper is. This damper needs to be, this slides out here, this ring slides out, which opens this square. So you load wood in here, goes up through the bread chamber, it's drawn left. This thing is so cold, it's not going to draft. The flames have to be able to shoot up and out into the chimney directly without being wound around here. If this damper was closed, there's no way it's going to draft properly, and the gases will just collect and all the smoke will collect in here, and you'll smoke your house out. I mean, really, really bad. So you light the stove, you open this damper up, where the gases, they still come into the bread chamber, but they're moving up. They want to naturally move up, and it's no problem getting them off to the side. Then boom, this is open, and the bricks will be on top here. You'll see we're only halfway through the construction. Then boom, right up, bypassing the rest of the stove. Once this 15 or 20 foot chimney through the roof is hot, then it will draw and draft on its own. Okay, then you close it off, gases come up, slam the top of this metal, can't get through, and then are pushed around to the other parts of the stove. But that first period of that 10-minute period, I hope I'm describing this, is essential. I just have a small little run from my wood stove, 2.5 feet horizontal. And that, if I don't warm my pipe or warm my chimney, that will smoke my house out. So let's continue. Explain how this stove is made. Let me put my hand on this button so I can stop it. Okay, you can't see where the gases are flowing now. They've covered it up with the bricks. And then they're going to enter the second chamber. The back is open. You can see the top right, there is a brick that's open. So the gases will, again, through the bread chamber off to our left. The damper here is closed. They hit the ceiling. They're drawn along the left side of the stove, and then underneath that little wall of brick, and then the back right will be the lifting channel, where the gases then can go enter what the Russians call the second bell. It's not really a bell in this case, but we'll just call it that. We're just putting lintels across there to make a ceiling across the cooking plate, which you wouldn't need to do that. It's just maybe for aesthetics. Okay. So again, the damper here is closed. Gases are drawn along very low along the side, and then here they come up the lifting channel, of which they'll be drawn back and then up the chimney. And I'm sure there'll be another damper when all is said and done. They're putting another little wall in. Here's what that's for. Gases flow left out of the bread chamber. They're not allowed to go up because the damper in this case is closed. They're drawn along the side of the stove, up this lifting channel. Now they're into another chamber, or the final top chamber. Gases want to rise, so they'll rise through this second or top chamber, which is being constructed. Then another little wall is being constructed. So they'll be forced once again to dip down 2 feet to go under the little wall and then go out. The design of a masonry heater in a Russian stove is to keep the hot gases and flame, or whatever, the byproducts of a flame, hot gases in the stove as long as possible to heat all the bricks as evenly as possible, but yet still have enough energy and momentum to get out. If the bricks cool the flame and the gases to under 120 degrees Celsius, there won't be enough energy for it to get out. So it's an art. If it goes through too quickly, and that damper was never closed, you just let the hot gases out, then all the bricks don't warm up. You don't have much of a stove. If you wind it around too much, then everything cools down, and the whole system will back up. And it's all for nothing. It really is an art. There's the second damper. The second damper is put in simply because, let me pause it. The first damper would be about here. And again, when the stove is lit, it just goes boom, right up and out. When it's closed, hits the top again, and the flames and the gases wind around. The second damper is not for that purpose. It's so when you have almost coals here, or the flame is entirely out, and you want to trap the heat in the stove, you close this top damper. Again, parts of Russia could be negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So not only do you want to trap the heat, you want to make sure as things cool down, cold air from outside, negative 30 degrees, will start flowing down the pipe into the stove, making all the bricks ice cold. It's important you have some warmth in these bricks the next morning. That preserves your draft, so then you can light again. They light these stoves twice a day, all winter, basically for 6 months straight. And because it's lit every day without a break, the bricks stay somewhat warm and the draft is maintained. So theoretically, you only have to open that first damper. That first damper is about here, maybe one time if you light this thing every day, because the draft will naturally be maintained via warm bricks. But the second damper is, you got to be careful because you get carbon monoxide poisoning, and they know when to close it. Just when you have no flame at all, just most of the coals are out, carbon monoxide is minor at that point. Close this off. Your chimney will then be, the chimney pipe will start here and go up through the roof. So all the heat is trapped. It's also trapping the gases and carbon monoxide. Again, you got to be very careful, but mostly so that cold negative 30 degree air doesn't come down and make all these bricks ice cold and turn the stove into an air conditioning. That's not what you want, in the northern Moscow suburbs when it's negative 30 degrees outside. So I've been told the Germans, the German government, that's big brother government that knows more than you, that wants you to stay safe and knows better. They don't even allow these dampers, I don't believe, in many countries. In Europe, I was told Germany doesn't. I believe it because it's a big brother nanny state. Matt, that's not what the purpose of this channel is. Get off. Where the Russians, they treat people like adults, and it's up to you to decide what to do with your own stove, not up to what government says. Sorry. Okay, so that is the purpose of the damper, and why this stove is such a great example is your dampers on a simple stove design or a proven stove design that works. Your first damper is always in line with the second damper and is in line with the chimney. If this, they're not going to show the chimney, but the chimney, then the black stovepipe would go straight up through the roof and out. Always in line, because you need that first damper allows the gases to, the first 10 minutes of burning, to go right up here. All these bricks warm up, and then the pipe itself warms up, And this, so some people might be a little confused. So this top 20-foot section on its own provides suction and draft and draw, even though it's really not connected to this section. Yes, it's by heating up this 20-foot section, or the part that leads through the roof, on its own, it will, all of a sudden this damper here is closed, it will pull, and it will pull. It only needs to pull for a few minutes until this part heats up, and then that will, again, the rest of the pipe and the chimney will heat up again. It's a great design, and again, you always want to have, for any sort of brick stove, you need to have a way for the gases to escape directly up the chimney to warm it up for 10 to 15 minutes before a masonry stove or a Russian stove or whatever it is, before you ask the hot gases to be wound around. Some Russian stoves that go up and down, the gases up and down, or in a double bell stove, they go into this bell, and then they go up into this bell, and the escape is low, and can't, in many cases, you need the dampers to warm the chimney. There are several Russian stoves and masonry stove designs I've seen that don't have this, and I just wonder how do they get the draft immediately? How does this thing draft without this sort of cheat to be able to warm your pipe? I don't understand when I see that. It's one of the last things that truly still confuses me, because I need something like this on my wood stove, and I have it just a 2-foot horizontal run. That's it. So anyway, I'll continue to investigate that, and as I get more information, I'll make another video. Thanks for watching.